Your guy Ryan Murphy dropping
My
his
guy.
first show for Netflix. They who famously signed both him and Shonda Rhimes, along with some other creators, to start making
Kenya
TV
Bears.
shows. And Ryan Murphy has been connected with Fox and FX a lot recently. Shows he obviously came up with Glee, and Nip Tuck, two shows that in his early days got popularity, but then more recently, American Horror Story, Pose, even 911.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy just puts out shows people want to watch. And the show, The Politician, had a lot of anticipation, I think, among people who are tuned into like the theater world and TV show world, because you had Ben Platt, leading this, Zoe Deutsch in it. You're obviously bringing back Jessica Lange, Gwyneth Paltrow. People were excited for it. Dave, did The Politician meet your expectations?
It's funny because I don't know if I had expectations going in. I've seen some of his stuff. I think his best show was the first season of American Crime Story. Obviously, People vs. OJ. The Emmy certainly agreed. But I haven't been a fan of a lot of his work. But I wanted to check it out. The first Murphy Netflix show, as you said, there's a bit of a gravitas. Netflix certainly is promoting it. And I found it pretty entertaining the whole time. Only 8 episodes, and I ran through it pretty fast. But I think the more you examine it, the more you can poke holes in the show and find problems. But it's just kind of pulpy, soapy stuff that Ryan Murphy fans want. So I assume this is going to be very pleasing to all of his fans. But it's not Ryan Murphy doing anything new. And he certainly isn't doing anything risky like he did with Pose. So I guess it just depends what you're looking for. But I found it entertaining enough. Not in my top 10 or anything, but I liked enough of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of figure out what exactly they were going for this show, because it felt like almost an amalgamation of all of Ryan Murphy's previous works, maybe excluding the horror story stuff. Because I get a lot of a Glee feeling in ways, especially when it's very obvious they're just like, oh, we want Ben Platt to sing right here. Like, they're just kind of like putting him in a bar.
Michelle this time.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't always make sense why he's singing, like just really random points. And then you kind of have the feelings of, I mean, I guess I haven't watched Pose, but just kind of like the stylization that Ryan Murphy is known for throughout. Really fancy clothes in this very.
It looks really good.
It does look really good, and the coloring is eye catching, and the dramatization of things, like when Bob Balaban finds out that Gwyneth Paltrow is having an affair and just runs and jumps out the window, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck, like so ridiculous. But I think I found myself a lot of time just feeling like I don't really know how many of these characters I really like, which for a show like Succession you can get away with, because there's just so much there that's intriguing and fascinating. But the stakes in this just felt like, and then you kind of bring in the mental health side of things throughout, and you're just kind of like, there's a lot to put together. I don't know if they always did it succinctly.
Well, the thing about Succession too, Succession is incredibly well written.
Yeah.
This isn't, but The Politician has no subtlety at all.
No.
And even if the characters were more consistent with their decisions and their actions, and that made more sense, that was more congruent, it's just really on the nose from the get-go. Like Peyton, Ben Platt's character, is just a blatant ripoff of Tracy Flick from Election, Reese Witherspoon. Yep. And as we said, you see the shades of Lea Michele from Glee. This is Murphy just kind of playing the hits to a certain extent, a lot of familiar material. And, he's cast people he's worked with before, like Jessica Lange, Dylan McDermott. And I think I remark right away is, like, is that high school? Like, is that a real high school? Like, I know this is supposed to be a affluent neighborhood. A lot of rich kids go to this school somewhere in California, but that did not look like a school at all to me. Certainly no structure to speak of. I mean, we're a little removed from high school, so what do I know? But that stood out to me. But hey, it was a really nice looking building, so I guess it was fun to shoot there.
but none of the places look like what they were supposed to be, at least to me, other than maybe like
Right.
the mansions. But like when Peyton is in the hospital, that hospital room, I didn't even know what that was. It was like
Right.
inside of someone's house. Like it was very bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. And I think I felt like there's so much potential, and obviously Ben Platt, the person doing the most heavy lifting here. But like Gwyneth Paltrow, I felt like there was potential there to dig more into her and her sacrifice and the decisions she made with her life and her marriage. But they only go skin deep on it,
Yeah.
and then you have someone like River, and who obviously had serious mental health issues and a lot
Mm.
going on for him. And after he dies, he pretty much just becomes Peyton's inner conscience, throughout the show.
Yeah,
Not
something
really
like that.
explored much further. Astrid, I thought there was some really
Oof.
interesting themes in terms of her and her relationship with her parents, and played by January Jones, and I didn't write the other guy's name
McDermott.
down. Dylan McDermott, yes. So there was like so much there that they just never really got into, and maybe they will in future seasons. Maybe they're just kind of slow playing it. I am intrigued for the second season where they leave it off, but just didn't do a lot to have enough good faith for me where I'm like, I feel like they can land this and make it a really, really good show moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, none of the subplots really landed, felt consequential. I think everything with Infinity was just kind of like a black hole for the show. I
Yeah,
just didn't want to be there. I didn't care about the boyfriend either. And Jessica Lange, uh,
wasted.
Nana, she was so obvious. Again, no subtlety to speak of, that you assume we're gonna see her be Patricia Arquette on Act like hours before it's officially confirmed to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was like, Infinity must be faking it like right away. And then by the end of the episode, the end of the pilot, you actually get that told to you, and it's like, oh, okay, so now what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and also, I think a lot of and actually, with Infinity, it's kind of disappointing because I really like Zoe Deutsch. I thought she was incredibly winning and set it up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her in general. But this just was kind of a weak role, I think, for her. Maybe in the future, in season 2, she gets to be more herself. We'll see. But the other characters, like Peyton's whole clique, his administration to be, as it were, they were all super archetypal, one note,
Mm-hmm.
not fleshed out at all. So I just didn't really care when they each got their little subplots later on,
Yeah.
And like on one hand, like James is a trans character that's not addressed at all. Great thing to see, but there's also Murphy. He's made pose, so I guess it coming from him maybe doesn't mean as much. But that's nice to normalize that more. But I just didn't really think you gave enough to warrant so much diverting from this main plot line, which was Peyton. And you could have explored more about how Peyton was really, I don't know, a little out of his mind. And like, yes, he has a breakdown and he's in the hospital. And then by the very jarring final episode it's almost like the beginning of a new season already,
Right.
where he has an alcohol problem now and just lost his purpose until the end. Like, I think it just tried to be like all things to all people and just kind of failed to be
not really
many
being
things to
anything.
anyone except Murphy heads.
Right.
But to your point about season 2, Judith Knight and Bette Midler show up.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm in.
Granted, Peyton can't actually run for state senate until he lives in the state for 5 years. We know he's from California, so that's not actually realistic, but who cares? But yeah, the lack of subtlety for things was pretty disappointing. Like, I think the best episode for me was that one like almost bottle episode where Astrid and Peyton are campaigning, and it focuses on the one
Elliot.
apathetic kid who likes to jerk off all the time. That was fantastic. That was really well done.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that, you have like talk about student IDs, which is just a blatant rip off like voter fraud and stuff. And there's no subtlety, there's no comment coming, so it just kind of feels amateur to me. But overall, that was the best episode in my opinion.
I totally agree. I had that written down that what I liked most about that was how it really highlighted the absurdity of the race. Because I feel like for so much of the show, I was just like, where the hell would this actually be happening? Like, what in what school would it be this intense and this ridiculous? And like, obviously, it's dramatized as a TV show, but it was so out there. I was like, how are other people not like, what is happening with this, high school presidential race? And they do comment on it sometimes, like they're doing the investigation. They say, hey, have you looked at Peyton? She was running against him, like maybe he kidnapped her, and like it's not a normal thing. Like they do comment on it at times, but I like seeing Elliot's perspective, because then I was like, okay, like the show maybe feels a tiny bit more grounded, or at least like
Yeah.
they realize how absurd it is. So I don't know. I'm definitely in for a second season though. I think just the concept is really awesome. Like having a different race every single season. I guess they're supposed to do this for
Right.
like 2 or 3 seasons. Is a really great way to structure a show. I just hope that they can make the race and like that plot a little bit more intriguing and build it out more, and
Yeah.
maybe pick and choose where they want to focus the commentary on.
Yeah. Having like the new dirt on
Yeah,
the new opponent being like
the
a
thruple.
thruple, a threesome, like that's it. All right, fine, whatever.
Right.
Shout out the intro sequence, though. I thought that looked great.
Mm-hmm.
In the age of skip intro, most people don't appreciate that stuff anymore, but that looked really cool. Yeah, it's it's just okay.